Welcome. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And we're going to go into the screen share. Let me make sure I'm in the right place for that. Yes. Okay. Here we go. And this is really a very interesting section for sure about, as we've talked about this before, the issue of ownership and how these laws impact on a very practical level about this. And again, the idea that since we don't own things outright, that we're then subject to the rules of rental, right? So here we go. If your brother, right, becomes poor, and he sells from his property, it's not just property, it's his inheritance, right? He sells from his, I guess, could we use the word patrimony? Something like that. Going on. Uva go'alo, and his redeemer comes, hakarov elav. So we should actually say go'alo hakarov elav. His redeemer, who is a relative of his, comes v'ga'al et mimkar achiv, to redeem the sale of his brother's sale. So just to try and put that into plain English, someone has had to sell their property, their real estate, right? We're talking about here, their fields, because of circumstances of poverty, and they have a member of family, another family member, who is in a position to come and redeem it, get it back for him. Okay, so we're going to talk about the rules involved there. Here we go. Ki yamuch achicha umachar. So from Sifra, trying to carefully analyze the value of each word. Melamed, this teaches, she'ein adam rashai limkor sadehu, that a person does not have permission to sell his field, ela mechamat dochak oni, unless it's from the distress of poverty. In other words, you can't simply just sell your patrimony just to make profit. You have to, or to just try and liquidate it, unless it's from circumstances that are such that you have to do it so that you can have enough liquid assets to be able to maintain your life, right? Me achuzato. So it says, it doesn't say machar achuzato. It doesn't say and sold his property or his land holding. It says and sold from his land holding. And the me here is known also, which from or of is known as the partitive article, meaning a part of it, not all of it. And that's what we're looking at carefully. It says from his holding, from his land holding, velo, and not, Rashi adds, kula, not the entire land holding. Lamdat Torah, or Limdat Torah, the Torah teaches derech eretz, meaning the common decency is the way I would translate derech eretz. Common decency. I wish it were more common, but the way of the land, literally it means, sheyishayer sadeh latzmo, that he should leave over one field for himself, that he should never sell the whole amount. He should leave at least part of it for himself. V'ga'el et mimkar achiv, remember this relative of his is coming to redeem the sale of his brother's sale. And again, this careful analysis, the ein halokech, the point about this is that the purchaser, the person who purchased the field, eino yachol, is not able, la'akev, to prevent him from doing this. So if a sale is made, right, of property from one person to another, he has to understand that any time he can buy it back. All right, someone can buy it back. We'll keep going into this a little bit more carefully to try to define it a little bit better. Going on.
Wait, how is that? I'm sorry, but how is this different from the you can't buy it back for 3 years?
Okay, so we have to get into that. Okay,
This is a different situation.
So it isn't. It just clarifies. Okay, here it's clarifying that even though he himself isn't buying it back, a relative of his can do it for him. But it has to be a relative. Judith, is that clarifying it?
Yes, but we don't hold property in the same way. It's more fungible. It doesn't like stay in the family or go back into the family after.
Well, this okay, but according to okay, sorry if I'm hearing you correctly, we're talking now about property in the land of Israel. And the idea is to keep a certain stability so that the tribes own their land and that it doesn't move from one tribe to another. That land is never sold outright, at least in the land of Israel. And according to Torah law. That's what we're dealing with here, unless I'm misunderstanding the point you're making.
I guess I'm questioning that since we don't live in the land of Israel, and we don't hold property that way.
No, we don't. Go on, please. Sorry, go on.
So what's the value of this beyond that we hold stuff in trust, but not for our family in this way?
Okay. So you're saying, what's the practical application nowadays? Is that the question you're asking?
I guess really it is.
Okay. So the answer is no. While we cannot apply this, nevertheless, it's talking to us about certain values, about trying to stabilize the economy and the personal situation of people, so to try to take steps to not put them in a position where they can lose everything and have no hope of ever, reestablishing themselves financially. And I see it more on that level. And even though we may not be able to actually practice that, we may not even be able to practice it nowadays at all, is the values that it's suggesting still important for us to know. So, we can take it from a purely academic standpoint. We're learning something about Torah law, and we have nothing more than that, and that's already still something. Or we can say, how can I apply this in general to how I conduct my business and the kinds of values it's trying to suggest. But no, it does not. It is not something that we can apply. Quite possibly in the land of Israel, we still can't do it either, because we don't know what tribe we're from anymore, unless you're a Levi. And the Levium did not have property. I want to make sure I'm answering your query. Anything else? Please. Okay. All right.
It just, particularly when we're talking about the purpose of property rules, it's, I don't know. I can't argue. I don't think anyone can argue with the value of gratitude and appreciation, but they sure do argue about what economics yield stability and how you're characterizing the purpose of this is I just think it's going to be argued, and then I don't really see the point.
Well, again, is it talking about the fact that members of a family need to help support each other in a very serious kind of way? Is that what it's saying here? I mean, I'm not trying to suggest, I'm not an economist. I'm just trying to extrapolate as best as I can first of all, just to simply understand the pshat, which is what Rashi is trying to tell us, to what degree it can actually be, what practical applications it has nowadays. I don't know. I'm just not, for me at this point, that's not my concern. Even if I'm studying Torah for the sake of studying Torah, that's good enough. At least for me. So is it okay to go on, or did you want to take the point further?
Sure, it's fine to go on.
Okay. But Judith, really, always open to, the specific concern you might have regarding what we're reading. Okay?
Yep.
All right. So the ish kilo, let me make sure I did take care of it. Yeah, okay. We're on to 26. The ish kilo ye lo goel. And in a situation of a person who does not have a redeemer, the hisiga yado, but he got enough money, right? His literally his hand reached. So he's able to do something now. Umatsa, because we understand that having money does give us a certain amount of control as opposed to not having any money at all. When you're impoverished and you don't have any money, it really makes life, it doesn't give you many options. So, and that's probably one of the reasons why people try to accumulate so much money, because it makes them feel that they're powerful. So at any rate, he acquired enough. Umatsa, and he now finds kedei gulato, that he has enough to redeem the property. So now we're talking about a person themselves, the seller, right? The seller. And this is, let's see if there's Rashi on this. Right. The ish kilo ye lo goel. And he says a person who does not have a redeemer. And this point made in Tractate Kiddushin. And again, the Torat Kohanim, this Sifra, this halachic midrash, as you can see, does an incredible job of trying to analyze this text. Vechi yesh lecha adam b'Yisrael, and it's sort of expressing surprise here. Since when, right, is there an individual Jew, she'ein lo go'alim, who has no one who might be a relative to be able to redeem the land? Ella, but what's this trying to say? Goel sheyuchal ligol mikakor. In other words, it's saying a redeemer who is in a position to redeem the sale. So it's not that he doesn't have anybody. It's not that there's no individuals. It's that he doesn't have anyone who's in a position to redeem the property, who has enough funds to redeem the property. And by the way, we haven't gotten into the basis on which the property is redeemed, how that's done. So, v'chishav et shnei mimkarot. So now we're going to talk about this. He should estimate, v'chishav, he should estimate shnei mimkarot, the years of its sale. V'heshiv et ha'odef, and he should return what is left over. The ish asher machar, to the man whom he has sold, to whom he is sold, v'shav la'achuzato, and it should come back, the fields should come back to his property, should be returned to his landholding. So again, explaining this a little bit clearer, in a clearer manner. V'chishav et shnei mimkarot. He should estimate the years of its sale. Kama shanim hayu, how many years there were ad hayovel, until the Jubilee year, right? So how many years are there till the Jubilee year? Kach v'chach v'kama, how much each one, right? Kama machartia lecha, how much I sold it to you. So let's suppose, just to try and make this very simple, let's suppose there were 49 years left to the Jubilee year, and he sold the property for $49,000. Then, in other words, each year now means it's basically rented at $1,000 a year, right? Just to explain what's going on, right? So I sold it to you at $1,000 a year, figuring out how many years there are left to the Jubilee year. And of course, he might have sold it with only 25 years left to the Jubilee year. And whatever the amount was that he sold the field, he needs to divide it by the number of years he had sold it for. Okay. V'kach v'kach. Atid hayita lahachzira b'yovel. And in the future, right, had you had the field until the Jubilee year, you would have had to return it to me, right? Period. The field just comes back to the original owner in the Jubilee year. Nimtzeit koneh mispar hatfuot. And so from this you derive that he actually is purchasing the number of yields. In other words, the number of harvests is what he's really purchasing. Kafi cheshbon shel kol shana, right? According to the amount of each year. Achalta ota. So if you were able to harvest it shalosh shanim, 3 years, or arba'ah, or 4 years, hotze et demehem, you could exclude the amount of money, that amount of money, min hacheshbon, from the total amount. You can subtract it from the total amount. Vetol et hashar v'zehu, and take the rest, and that's it. We're quit. So go ahead.
I'm just questioning. You said harvest, but it says eaten. But I guess you're saying it that's just equivocating because you harvest it to eat it, and if you've eaten it, you've harvested it.
Right. I mean, he could do what he wanted. Achalta does mean eaten, but I think it means more than just simply physically eating it. It means, you've taken the harvest, you've harvested it
for consumption.
Yeah, but not necessarily his own personal. The seller could take that, and obviously the field would give him much more than he needed just for his own family. But he could sell it, and I assume that's what he would do. He'd keep some of it for his own provisions and sell the remainder. The point was that it was his to do, whatever that harvest was and how much he harvested. He could then use it that way. But in this particular case, it's saying you had 3 years you had 3 harvests from the field, and there would have been 49 harvests, 25 harvests. So take the money if you used it for 3 years and there were 25 harvests coming up, and we know how much you were paying per harvest, you'll take 22. I'm going to pay you back for 22 harvests. What you paid me, I'm going to return to you. Is this making sense? I don't think it's really complicated. I think it's pretty straightforward. Okay. V'heshiv et ha'odef. He should return the remainder. V'demei ha'mekach, right? With the money with the purchase money. In other words, it's not that it isn't fungible, but basically, if the man paid him $1,000 a year, he has to pay him back $1,000 a year. Al ha'achila she'achal. And again, so this is talking about what he consumed. So I think translating the word achal as consume is a little bit clearer, right? Amount he had consumed, vayitnem la lokech, and he should give that money to the purchaser. Okay, leish asher machar, to the man who purchased it from him. Hamocher hazeh. That is to say, Shebala Ga'ala. That is to say, this seller who came to redeem the field. So the seller has to return to the purchaser whatever remaining harvests there would be. He has to return to him the purchase price. But remember, I believe, Judith, you were saying that we've already learned that he cannot do it less than 2 or 3 years. He has to allow the purchaser a minimum of 2 or 3 years to harvest the field. Ve'im lo matz'ayado de hashiv lo, but if he did not have in his hand, literally, enough to return to him, v'haya mimkaro bayad hakoneh, the purchased field is what it's meaning, right? The purchase, should be under the control of the purchaser, Ad Shnat HaYovel, until the Jubilee year, V'yatsa b'Yovel, and it should go out in the Jubilee year, V'shav la'achuzato, and return to his property, to his inheritance. So what is this adding? Rashi explains. If he doesn't have the entire amount that he has to give him in order to redeem the field, so if he needs to pay him 25,000, there are 25 years left. It was $1,000 a year, and he doesn't have $25,000, right? Mikan she'eino go'el chatzaim. The point of this particular sentence is that you can't pay back a little part. In other words, he can say, well, I know you have 25 more years, but I'm paying you for 10 of those years. So you can keep it for another 15, and then I will have redeemed it. You have to, in this particular moment, you have to return the entire amount when you're ready to redeem the field. So that's this particular part. Let's see. Right. Ad Shnat HaYovel, until the Jubilee year, again, the Sifra, Shelo Yikanes Latoch Ota Shana Klum. In other words, the field, the moment the Jubilee year arrives, the field transfers back to the original owner. There should not be any part of that Jubilee year where the field is still under the control of the purchaser. Shehayovel mishamet betchilato, because the Jubilee year releases it at the very beginning. So it doesn't get released within the Jubilee year. The Jubilee year comes as the point at which the field is released back to the original owner. Any questions about this at this point? Okay. So we will start tomorrow. We will not meet. It's Wednesday. And so we will not meet tomorrow. But God willing, we will get together on Thursday and continue with this on Thursday. So I'm going to stop the share and stop the recording.